Why won't anyone help me? Rachel Anderson whispered to herself, her voice barely rising above the din of the busy downtown grocery store, the fluorescent lights flickering above her as if mocking her desperation. She clutched the small shopping basket tightly, Lily's tiny hand wrapped around her finger, the 2-year-old's eyes wide and watery from a bout of teething that had lasted all morning. Around them, the crowd moved with indifferent purpose, people brushing past, checking their phones, and avoiding even a glance in her direction as if she were invisible. Rachel had already asked 3 different shoppers for help reaching the top shelf where the organic baby formula sat, the one Lily needed so badly, and each time she had been met with excuses or dismissive shakes of the head. Sweat prickled her forehead and her stomach twisted in anxiety, counting the few crumpled bills in her wallet that wouldn't nearly cover what she needed, knowing that if she failed here, the next few hours would be a nightmare of rationed milk and tears. She bent down to soothe Lily, her whispered reassurances barely audible, promising her daughter she would figure this out, that everything would be okay, even though she knew the reality was far from it. From across the aisle, Michael Carter, CEO of Meridian Technologies, noticed the small commotion, the subtle tension that radiated off the young mother and the frustrated curiosity in the child's gaze as she reached helplessly for the shelf. His eyes, sharp and calculating from years of business negotiations, softened at the sight, a flicker of something he hadn't expected to feel in months, concern, empathy, a pull to act that had nothing to do with corporate strategy. He adjusted the cuff of his custom-tailored shirt and took a deliberate step closer, observing Rachel's struggle, the quiet panic in her movements, the slight tremor in her hands as she tried to lift the basket higher. Rachel let out a low sigh, her lips pressing together, a soft whimper escaping as Lily began to fuss again, the tiny cries piercing through the ordinary noise of the store and pulling every ounce of attention to the vulnerability of the moment. Michael's presence approached silently, unnoticed by the oblivious shoppers, a steady force ready to intervene, but Rachel had no idea he was there. She continued negotiating the shelf, stretching on tiptoe, mumbling apologies under her breath each time she knocked another can to the floor, anxiety mounting, her mind racing through 100 possibilities, none of which included help from anyone around her. Then, without warning, a tall figure appeared beside her, his hand steadying the basket, his voice calm yet commanding. "Here, let me help you with that." Rachel froze, blinking up at him, confusion and surprise flashing across her face as she realized someone had actually stopped to assist her, someone who wasn't ignoring her, someone who was taking the task entirely upon themselves. She glanced at Lily, who had stopped fussing, eyes tracking the movement, and then back at the man, recognizing the sharp lines of his face, the calm authority in his posture, the confidence of a man who had seen countless crises yet approached this one with patience and care. Relief surged through her in a way she hadn't felt in days, her shoulders relaxing just slightly, the tension in her jaw easing as he arranged the formula on the lower shelf within her reach, ensuring Lily could grab it without struggle. "There you go," he said, a small, reassuring smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "All set." Rachel's breath hitched, gratitude spilling into tears she quickly wiped away, her voice a whisper, "Thank you so much, I don't know how to repay you." The man shook his head gently, offering a quiet chuckle that seemed to resonate warmth into the otherwise sterile environment. "No repayment necessary, just take care of her." Rachel nodded, unable to speak further, watching as he moved away slightly, remaining close enough to ensure everything was okay, yet giving her the space to regain composure. She bent down, lifted Lily into her arms, feeling the small, reassuring weight against her chest, and whispered softly, "It's okay, baby, we're okay now." For the first time that morning, Rachel felt a flicker of hope, a sense that perhaps someone would notice, perhaps someone would care, and that maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't completely turned its back on her and her little girl. Rachel took a deep breath, still holding Lily close, the soft warmth of her daughter calming the remaining tremors of panic that had surged through her moments ago. She glanced at the small basket, now filled with the organic formula and a few essentials she had been able to afford, and felt a wave of relief wash over her, but the anxiety in her chest had not completely dissipated. People continued to bustle past, carts rolling and voices chatting about errands and appointments, yet the sharp contrast of the man who had helped lingered in her mind, the impression of his calm efficiency refusing to fade. Rachel adjusted Lily on her hip, scanning the aisle for any other items they might need, realizing that the simple act of shopping, which had always been mundane, had become an ordeal she had to navigate alone. The grocery store suddenly felt less intimidating with someone noticing her struggle, even if he was no longer directly involved, and for a brief moment, Rachel allowed herself to imagine that there were still people willing to step up when others turned away. She pushed the cart slowly forward, the clink of cans and jars echoing softly in the wide, fluorescent-lit space, and her mind wandered to the upcoming week, to the bills that still needed paying and the hours of work ahead, yet a small ember of hope flickered, giving her the strength to keep going. Michael, from his vantage point near the end of the aisle, observed quietly as Rachel moved through the store, noting the careful attention she gave to her daughter, the way she balanced urgency with gentleness, and the subtle signs of exhaustion etched into her features. He adjusted the cuff of his shirt, considering how often he had watched people in high-pressure meetings overlook the nuances of human need, and how differently it felt to witness the quiet perseverance of a mother trying to provide for her child. Michael moved closer again, not to intervene this time, but to ensure that Rachel was able to navigate the final stretch to the register without further difficulty, his presence a silent reassurance. Rachel, unaware of him behind her, continued selecting items, each decision a mixture of necessity and strategy, calculating the limited funds against the needs of her daughter. Lily giggled softly, reaching for a small package of crackers, and Rachel smiled faintly, her heart swelling with the small victory, knowing that despite the strain, she could provide comfort and sustenance to her child. When she finally reached the checkout, she discovered that the line was long, each person absorbed in their own concerns, but the rhythm of the queue, the mundane sounds of beeping scanners and coins dropping, now seemed less daunting, as if the earlier intervention had shifted the weight of the world just slightly. Michael, still observing discreetly, allowed Rachel the space she needed, watching as she unloaded her items with methodical care, the precision of her movements betraying years of navigating challenges alone. He noticed how she managed Lily simultaneously, her eyes meeting the toddler's in brief flashes of reassurance, murmuring soft words that seemed to anchor them both in the chaos of the store. The air was filled with the faint scent of produce and freshly baked bread, a familiar comfort amid the tension, and Rachel allowed herself to breathe, feeling the subtle transition from fear to cautious confidence. Michael stepped back slightly, satisfied with her composure, and considered how the smallest acts of assistance could have profound effects, how a simple gesture could shift the trajectory of someone else's day, perhaps even their life. As Rachel completed the transaction, counting her change with careful attention, she sensed the lingering impression of a presence behind her, a reassurance without intrusion, and felt a deep, unspoken gratitude that would linger long after the store faded from view. She tucked Lily's hand into her own and lifted her gently, walking toward the exit with a renewed sense of determination, the weight of uncertainty tempered by the quiet acknowledgement that someone had seen her struggle and had chosen to act with compassion, leaving an indelible mark on both her heart and the rhythm of their day. Rachel stepped out of the store, the cool November air brushing against her face, and felt a mixture of exhaustion and tentative relief as she adjusted Lily in her arms. The parking lot stretched before her, dotted with cars and the hum of engines starting and doors closing, yet the earlier tension that had gripped her seemed to linger like a shadow, a reminder of how precarious her day had been. She navigated the rows carefully, balancing the small grocery bags alongside Lily, each step measured and deliberate, aware of the uneven pavement beneath her worn sneakers. Michael Carter remained just far enough behind to remain unseen, his presence a silent assurance that if another mishap occurred, he would be ready, yet he allowed her the space to regain control of the situation. Rachel's thoughts raced through the coming week, the bills that needed paying, the appointment she had scheduled for Lily, and the work she had left unfinished, all mingling into a low hum of anxiety that never fully dissipated. As she reached the car, she paused, fumbling with the keys, her hands trembling slightly from fatigue and the adrenaline of the earlier encounter. Lily yawned, resting her head against Rachel's shoulder, and Rachel offered a small, reassuring smile, murmuring, "We are almost home, baby, just a little longer." The SUV beside them rolled forward, and Rachel, careful not to look back, sensed the movement behind her, a calm presence that had been consistent since the aisle incident. Michael stepped forward now, more openly, approaching the vehicle with a professional yet gentle demeanor, his sharp eyes assessing the balance of bags and child in Rachel's grasp, and then, with a fluid motion, he opened the rear door, gesturing for her to place the groceries inside safely. Rachel hesitated for a fraction of a second, the instinct to refuse ingrained from years of self-reliance and pride, yet the sincerity in his expression, the absence of condescension, allowed her to nod and step forward. He lifted the heavier bags with careful efficiency, placing them neatly in the back seat, all the while maintaining a quiet attentiveness to Lily's comfort and Rachel's safety. "Thank you," Rachel whispered again, her voice catching slightly, a mixture of disbelief and gratitude, and Michael responded with a soft smile that conveyed neither judgment nor expectation, only the acknowledgement that her struggle had been seen and addressed. Lily, sensing the calm energy of the man helping her mother, reached out her tiny hand with curiosity, and Michael knelt slightly to offer a playful fist bump, eliciting a giggle from the child and a small, relieved laugh from Rachel. As they finished loading the groceries, Rachel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day lift just slightly, the rhythm of her steps steadier, the warmth of her daughter providing comfort against the chill of the evening. Michael stepped back once the final bag was secured, giving Rachel space to seat Lily safely and close the car door, his eyes never leaving her for more than a fleeting moment, measuring her readiness to proceed. The quiet confidence he exuded, the unspoken reassurance of support without intrusion, allowed Rachel to feel a rare sense of ease in the midst of ongoing responsibility, a temporary reprieve from the constant balancing act of motherhood and survival. She glanced toward him briefly, catching the subtle nod of acknowledgement, and for the first time in days, allowed herself a moment of mental clarity, considering the possibility that assistance could exist in unexpected forms, that kindness could appear at the precise moment it was most needed, and that she and Lily were not entirely alone in navigating the challenges ahead. As she slid into the driver's seat and adjusted the mirror, Rachel felt the faint but persistent impression of Michael's presence lingering behind her, a quiet anchor of reliability and care, setting the stage for the unfolding connection that had begun in the fluorescent-lit aisles just minutes earlier. Rachel started the engine and pulled slowly out of the parking lot, the city lights reflecting off the windshield and casting a warm glow across the interior of her small SUV. Lily, now settled into her car seat with a soft blanket wrapped around her, reached up with tiny hands, playing with the edge of her mother's sleeve and giggling softly, the sound easing the lingering tension in Rachel's chest. She drove carefully down the familiar streets, every turn and traffic light bringing a sense of normalcy she had not felt all day. Michael followed discreetly in his own vehicle, keeping a respectful distance, his eyes occasionally flicking to the rearview mirror to ensure Rachel and Lily were navigating safely through the busy evening traffic. The hum of the engine and the distant sounds of the city created a rhythm, a backdrop to the quiet connection forming from the earlier encounter. Rachel's mind drifted to the events of the store, the calm authority with which Michael had handled the situation, and the ease with which he had managed to both help and respect her independence, leaving her with a mixture of curiosity and cautious appreciation. She adjusted the rearview mirror to catch a glimpse of Lily, who had now fallen into a light sleep, her small chest rising and falling steadily, and Rachel felt a wave of protectiveness wash over her, mingled with relief that the immediate crisis had passed. Michael's presence, although unseen, offered a subtle reassurance, a silent acknowledgement that her efforts had been noticed and valued, and Rachel allowed herself a small moment of gratitude for this unexpected support. As the streets began to narrow, lined with familiar brick buildings and the occasional park bench, Rachel's thoughts returned to the broader picture of her life, the constant balancing act of work, childcare, and maintaining some sense of stability, and how moments like these, small yet significant, had the power to shift perspective and restore a glimmer of hope. Michael, observing from a discreet distance, noted the careful way Rachel navigated the streets, the attention she gave to her child and her surroundings, and the resilience in her posture and movements that spoke of countless challenges faced alone, each step measured with quiet determination. The traffic light ahead turned green, and Rachel moved forward, the SUV gliding into the flow of cars with Lily's soft breathing providing a comforting background to the tension of the day. She allowed herself a deep breath, feeling the tightness in her shoulders loosen slightly, and considered the kindness she had been shown, how it had altered the course of an ordinary evening into something unexpected, a reminder that even in moments of struggle, there could be intervention, support, and care. Michael continued to follow, careful not to intrude, but ready to act if another obstacle arose, his awareness of Rachel and Lily's needs heightened by the earlier display of determination and vulnerability. Rachel passed familiar landmarks, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement, and felt a subtle shift within herself, a renewed sense of possibility and the knowledge that she was not entirely alone in facing the challenges of her life. As she approached the turn leading to her apartment complex, she noticed how Lily stirred slightly, murmuring softly in her sleep, and Rachel's lips curved into a gentle smile, the simple act of parenthood mingled with relief and cautious hope. Michael, now slightly closer, remained an unobtrusive presence, his observant eyes noting the small details, the natural interactions between mother and child, and the composed yet tired determination that guided Rachel through each step of the journey, leaving him with a quiet resolve to ensure the evening continued smoothly without imposing, a silent companion to the small yet meaningful victory that had begun hours earlier in the grocery store aisle. Rachel finally reached the entrance to her apartment complex, the familiar brick facade and softly glowing porch lights providing a comforting sense of arrival after the long and emotionally taxing evening. She navigated the small set of steps leading to the lobby, carefully balancing Lily in one arm and the grocery bags in the other, her breath visible in the crisp night air as the temperature dipped just below 50 degrees. The automatic doors slid open smoothly, revealing the warm interior with its soft lighting and the faint scent of cleaning products and fresh carpeting, a stark contrast to the bustling streets outside. Rachel glanced around, briefly scanning for the security desk attendant, but the lobby was empty, and she proceeded toward the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly in her slight impatience, aware that Lily was becoming restless despite the warmth and safety of the building. As the doors opened, she stepped in, adjusting Lily in the car seat, feeling the soft weight of her daughter against her body and the subtle relief of being indoors. The ride up to the 4th floor was short, but Rachel's mind was active, reflecting on the day, the struggle she had faced, and the unexpected kindness that had appeared just when she had needed it most. Michael remained just outside the lobby, leaning slightly against his car, watching her with quiet attention, careful not to intrude but ready to ensure that the rest of the journey was completed without incident. Rachel reached her apartment door and fumbled with the keys, her hands slightly shaky from exhaustion and lingering tension, while Lily wriggled softly in her arms, mumbling incoherently as toddlers do, her tiny voice carrying both sleepiness and curiosity. The door clicked open and Rachel stepped inside, immediately greeted by the familiar warmth of her apartment, the soft hum of the heater, and the scent of the faint lavender air freshener she always kept on the counter. She placed Lily carefully on the small rug by the sofa, gently brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face, murmuring reassuring words as Lily glanced up and offered a sleepy smile. Rachel set the grocery bags down on the kitchen counter, methodically checking their contents, counting the formula, the fresh fruit, and the other essentials, ensuring that everything was accounted for and ready for the coming days. The soft clink of jars and cans filled the quiet space, a mundane soundtrack that contrasted sharply with the anxiety of the earlier hours but provided a sense of control and order she had been craving. Michael, still nearby, watched from a respectful distance, noting the way Rachel moved, the careful attention she paid to each small task, and the unwavering focus she maintained on her daughter's comfort and well-being. Rachel prepared a small snack for Lily, slicing a piece of apple and offering it with a gentle smile, and Lily took it eagerly, her small fingers grasping the food with delight, momentarily distracted from the lingering fatigue of the day. Rachel allowed herself a quiet sigh, settling onto the edge of the sofa, watching her daughter with a mixture of relief and pride, acknowledging the resilience that had carried them through yet another challenge. Outside the window, the city lights twinkled, distant sounds of traffic and pedestrians creating a soft background noise, while inside, the apartment was a sanctuary of warmth and safety, a stark contrast to the earlier chaos. Michael, observing discreetly from the shadows beyond the glass, felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that the initial intervention had allowed Rachel and Lily to reach this space unharmed, their needs met for the moment, and he prepared himself for the next steps, a quiet presence ready to ensure that the evening continued smoothly, the bond formed in small acts of kindness laying the foundation for the events yet to unfold. Rachel carefully carried Lily to the small armchair by the window, letting her daughter settle into the soft cushions while tucking the blanket around her shoulders. She poured a glass of water for herself, the cool liquid soothing her parched throat, and sank onto the sofa, her mind still racing with the events of the evening. The city outside shimmered with streetlights and the occasional passing car, a steady hum that contrasted with the sudden surge of emotion she had experienced earlier in the grocery store. She glanced at the clock, noting that it was nearly 8:30, and realized that despite the long day, there was still so much to prepare for tomorrow, the small responsibilities of work, bills, and childcare pressing in on her like a tangible weight. Michael, remaining at a respectful distance outside the apartment, watched quietly as she moved about, noting the careful precision in her actions, the way she balanced efficiency with gentle care for Lily, and the understated strength that emanated from her every gesture. Rachel prepared a small snack for Lily, arranging pieces of fruit and a cracker on a plate, and the little girl reached out eagerly, her tiny hands grasping the food with delight. As she munched quietly, her eyes lighting up with the simple joy of being cared for. Rachel smiled softly, a warmth spreading through her chest, and she spoke gently, narrating each action as if it were a small story just for Lily, her words a calm reassurance to herself as much as to her daughter. Michael observed this interaction, noting how the ordinary tasks of preparing a snack became an intimate display of maternal devotion and patience, a quiet but powerful indication of the depth of Rachel's character. As Lily finished her snack, Rachel helped her stand and walk toward the small play area in the corner of the living room, watching with attentive eyes to ensure she did not stumble, offering gentle encouragement and praise for every small step. The room was quiet except for Lily's soft laughter and the distant sounds of traffic below, creating a peaceful bubble that allowed Rachel a brief reprieve from the constant vigilance her life demanded. She gathered the remaining groceries, placing them neatly in the pantry, taking care to arrange them so that essentials were easily accessible for the coming days, each movement deliberate and considered, reflecting her deep sense of responsibility and care. Michael, still observing from a distance, felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that his earlier intervention had provided the opportunity for Rachel and Lily to establish a sense of calm and stability, and he began to formulate the next steps in ensuring their immediate needs were met without imposing further. Rachel finally sank back onto the sofa, stretching her tired limbs and closing her eyes for a moment, allowing herself a deep, steady breath as the tension of the day began to ebb slightly. The soft lighting of the apartment cast a warm glow across the room, highlighting the small but meaningful domestic details that spoke of her perseverance and dedication, and for the first time that evening, Rachel allowed herself to imagine a world where small acts of kindness could ripple outward, providing support and hope even in moments of quiet struggle. Outside, Michael adjusted his position, maintaining the balance between observation and discretion, his attention unwavering as he silently acknowledged the strength and resilience displayed within the small apartment, ready to act should another need arise, and leaving Rachel with the unspoken assurance that she was not entirely alone in facing the challenges ahead. Rachel had just finished tucking Lily into her small toddler bed, smoothing the blanket around her shoulders and planting a gentle kiss on the top of her daughter's head, and she stepped back, letting the soft glow of the nightlight cast a warm hue across the room. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders loosening for the first time since the day had begun, the tension that had accumulated over errands, anxiety, and sleepless nights finally easing, if only slightly. In the kitchen, she gathered the remaining items from the grocery trip, placing cans and boxes carefully on the shelves and stacking the formula in a way that made the small space feel organized and secure. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater and the occasional distant sounds of cars passing on the street below, a gentle reminder of the city that never fully sleeps. Rachel moved back toward the living room, carrying a cup of tea in her hands, and sank into the sofa, letting the warmth seep into her tired muscles. Her thoughts drifted back to the grocery store, to the man who had stepped in when everyone else had turned away, the way he had handled the situation with calm efficiency and an almost unnoticeable gentleness that made her feel both seen and respected. A quiet sense of curiosity began to grow within her, mingled with gratitude, as she thought about how rare it was to encounter someone so aware of others' needs in such a selfless manner. Outside, the wind carried the faint sounds of the city nightlife, but inside the apartment, there was a calm bubble of safety and routine, the small rituals of putting Lily to bed and organizing the evening providing a reassuring structure to her world. Rachel took a sip of tea, her eyes drifting to the window where the reflection of the room shimmered against the dark glass, and she imagined a sense of possibility, a glimpse of a future where small acts of kindness could ripple outward, creating moments of relief and connection even in a life often filled with struggle. She leaned back, letting her body sink into the sofa cushions, and allowed herself a moment of reflection, considering the exhaustion, the stress, and the unexpected assistance she had received, and realizing that the world, despite its indifference, occasionally revealed glimpses of generosity that could change the course of a day, or perhaps more. Michael, from a respectful distance outside, observed the apartment through the window with careful discretion, noting Rachel's movements, her attentiveness to her daughter, and the quiet strength that radiated from her every action, aware that the small intervention earlier had provided not only immediate assistance but a subtle reinforcement of resilience and dignity that could resonate beyond the evening. Rachel rose to retrieve a small notebook from the counter, jotting down a few reminders for the coming days, her hand steady and her mind more focused, and she felt a small, but significant, sense of control returning. The soft lighting and the stillness of the apartment allowed her to gather herself, the ordinary details of domestic life, from setting the groceries to organizing Lily's bedtime routine, becoming a grounding force, a reminder that even amid challenges, moments of care and calm could be found. She glanced once more toward Lily's closed door, a protective instinct mingling with a quiet pride, and allowed herself to acknowledge the comfort of having navigated the day successfully, aided in ways unexpected, and she felt the faint stirrings of hope that tomorrow could bring continued resilience, support, and perhaps the start of a connection that had quietly begun under the fluorescent lights of the grocery store earlier that evening. Rachel settled back on the sofa, her hands wrapped around the warm cup of tea, the steam rising gently and filling the small living room with a comforting scent of chamomile. She took a slow sip, letting the warmth seep into her chest and ease the lingering tension, her eyes wandering over the neatly arranged apartment, the soft glow of the floor lamp casting gentle shadows on the walls. Lily was now sound asleep, curled under the blanket with a peaceful expression that brought a soft smile to Rachel's lips. The quiet of the night wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the bustling city outside, and Rachel allowed herself to breathe deeply, the weight of the day slowly lifting. She reflected on the grocery store, the way a single act of kindness had altered the course of their evening, and the impact it had on both her and Lily's sense of safety and comfort. Her mind drifted, imagining the possibilities that could unfold from such unexpected generosity, the quiet hope that perhaps the world was not as indifferent as it often seemed. Outside, Michael paused at a respectful distance, leaning against his car, his eyes observing the apartment window, noting the careful, nurturing way Rachel moved within her home, the subtle attention she paid to every detail, from the arrangement of groceries to the comfort of her child. The night air was crisp, carrying faint city sounds, and he remained there, a silent guardian of the small sanctuary he had helped create, feeling the quiet satisfaction that his earlier intervention had allowed them to reach this moment safely. Rachel sipped her tea again, her thoughts turning toward the coming week, the challenges that awaited, and the small victories of today that reminded her she was capable of navigating life's difficulties, sometimes with support, sometimes relying solely on her own resilience. She set the cup on the coffee table and allowed her eyes to drift toward Lily's bedroom, watching the gentle rise and fall of her daughter's chest, a rhythm that had become a source of both comfort and motivation for Rachel in countless ways. The apartment was still, the warm lighting and soft furnishings creating a cocoon of calm, yet Rachel's mind was alert, planning, anticipating, and quietly celebrating the small moments of grace that had punctuated an otherwise difficult day. Michael remained outside, observing the quiet scene, noting the steady composure Rachel maintained despite the exhaustion evident in her posture and movements, recognizing the strength that came from perseverance and the unspoken depth of her dedication to her daughter. Rachel stood, stretching gently, and walked over to the window, looking out at the city lights twinkling below, a reminder of the world beyond her apartment, vast and busy, yet within her reach through patience, care, and small acts of determination. She exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease further, and a sense of cautious optimism settled over her, a recognition that kindness, however brief, could ripple forward, shaping the moments yet to come. The quiet night, the safety of her home, and the restful presence of her daughter created a profound stillness, a space in which Rachel could reflect, recharge, and embrace the subtle hope that had entered their lives, a promise that even in the face of ongoing challenges, support and compassion could appear at exactly the right time. Rachel sank into the sofa, feeling the full weight of the day finally settle over her, her muscles aching yet her mind buzzing with the lingering impact of the kindness she had received earlier. She looked over at Lily, who had shifted slightly in her sleep, her small hand reaching out instinctively toward the warmth of the blanket Rachel had tucked around her, and a soft smile crept across Rachel's face as she considered the trust and dependence her daughter placed in her. The quiet apartment was a haven now, the hum of the heater and the faint sounds of the city outside creating a rhythm that was both calming and grounding. Rachel reflected on how quickly moments of difficulty could transform into unexpected opportunities for connection, her thoughts returning to the grocery store, the careful efficiency of the man who had stepped in, and the subtle reassurance he had offered without intrusion. A gentle knock at the door startled her briefly, and she paused, her mind racing through possibilities, before realizing it was a neighbor returning a borrowed tool, a mundane interruption that somehow highlighted the contrast between ordinary interactions and the extraordinary act she had witnessed earlier. Rachel thanked the neighbor and closed the door, her attention immediately returning to the soft breathing of Lily. And she allowed herself to relax into the sofa, sipping the now lukewarm tea and feeling a small but persistent sense of relief. Michael, observing from a discreet distance, noted the care with which Rachel moved through her apartment, the way she balanced attentiveness to her daughter with methodical organization of the space, and he felt a quiet admiration for her resilience, the understated strength that seemed to guide every choice she made. Rachel began to prepare a small list of priorities for the coming week, noting appointments, grocery needs, and tasks, her handwriting precise and deliberate, each entry a reminder of the structure and perseverance that had carried her through the day. The glow of the lamp cast soft shadows across the table, highlighting the small domestic details that spoke of her dedication and care, and for a moment, she allowed herself to envision the possibilities of tomorrow, the potential for continued stability and even unexpected moments of kindness that might appear again. Outside, Michael adjusted his position, remaining unseen, but fully aware of Rachel's movements, the calmness she had established in her apartment a testament to her capability and the quiet effectiveness of small interventions. Rachel leaned back, stretching slightly, and glanced toward the window, the city lights sparkling like distant stars, a reminder of the vastness of the world outside and the interconnectedness of small actions within it. She felt a renewed sense of determination, a recognition that despite the ongoing challenges she faced as a single mother, moments of assistance and compassion could make a tangible difference, providing both immediate relief and a subtle shift in perspective. The apartment was still, Lily sleeping peacefully, the space filled with a sense of quiet accomplishment and tentative hope, and Rachel allowed herself to feel the relief and reassurance of having navigated the day successfully, the memory of the earlier act of kindness lingering in her mind, a quiet promise of support and care that could appear when it was needed most, leaving her with a mixture of gratitude, curiosity, and a sense of possibility for the days to come.